Welcome back to New Persuasive Words. I'm Scott Jones.
I'm Bill Bohr.
Bill, here we
We're
go.
going to do a theological Friday, but what do we call our Saturdays?
I don't need these name by days a week. This is in the now. I live in the now.
You live in
the
the now.
eternal now.
Right.
Eternal recurrence.
Yeah.
That's a Nietzsche doctrine, eternal recurrence.
Yeah. Well,
you know, what's not eternally recurring is these tariffs.
Yes, I know. What a child.
The Supreme Court is working like there's like other countries have infiltrated the court. I mean, we have a leader who's like turned out to be like probably my strongest, very strong, very. We have the tariffs now. No tariff. Well, I could tariff anywhere. I could do many tariffs, powerful and strong. I'm putting a tariff on all Bad Bunny's music. Every play will cost you, like, it will be like, with the kids, you listen on your, like, I guess like a phone, right? This is what they're calling these, right? Kind of like a TV, it's kind of like a computer. And like in the old jukebox at the diner, we had put in a quarter. That's what you're going to have to do. They're going to have like a slot. Tim Cook, very good friend, very powerful, strong, very gay. I love gays. I'm very strong with the gay billionaires. Very strong. He's going to make it so you put a quarter in your iPhone for every Bad Bunny song. It's remarkable. It's like the old diners for Bad Bunny, and then all will go to the deficit. Bad Bunny.
You see that there's now a picture of the great leader on the Justice Department.
I love it.
Oh my goodness.
You know what's interesting? I was thinking about this today. The tariffs were the most moral part of the Trump administration. In that, do you remember when he said, like, basically, he tried the Jimmy Carter thing? He said, like, well, kids' toys are going to be more expensive at Christmas. And he said, well, maybe you just have to not buy $2 for, like, Sally. She only gets, like... But it was, like, the most moral thing I've ever heard him say. It's kind of like when Jimmy Carter said...
Right.
That, you got to button up, get a sweater, and don't turn the thermostat up because we have an energy crisis. Actually calling on Americans to sacrifice and change their lifestyle for the good of the whole. Trump, that's the most moral thing I ever heard. It was over tariffs. It was that was the time when he asked Americans for sacrificial living, that they might have to change their lifestyle and stop winning so that they could win in the long term.
There we go.
Really, I thought about that. It's like that's the one time I think I've actually heard him talk in terms of sacrifice, in terms of asking something of the American people.
Right.
I mean, he asks us to sacrifice every day to deal with his demanding personality. But I mean, a conscious sacrifice. I mean, explicit.
Other than unconditional allegiance, that thing. Other than that, yeah.
Yeah, but it's very, it's very interesting. So the tariffs. This is,
It might, it'd be interesting if Congress might have to do their job. Congress may have to do something about this.
I was reading their quotes from Kavanaugh's dissent. I guess he wrote the dissenting opinion.
Raging Brett Kavanaugh. Yeah, I was very strong, very strong. Raging Brett, very strong.
He is probably, other than, in terms of the order of who's owned the most on the court, he would probably be the second most corporately.
But he said imagine all the chaos trying to undo this. What about all the chaos it started? Wait, that's right. I mean, look, that's an argument for Supreme Court justice. I mean, you know what? Integration was chaotic. Right. Women suffer. A lot of shit is chaotic when it starts. A lot of shit is chaotic.
You all haven't seemed to be that concerned for the first... how many months about chaos. So.
There was a great episode of The West Wing where they're talking about gays in the military, and they're saying it's disrupting the unit, and the head of the Joint Chiefs is black, Admiral Fitzwallace. He says, you know what? They made the same argument when they wanted to put me in the unit. And you know what? It did disrupt the unit. The unit got over it. Yeah, it's just so interesting that's the... Well, I mean... Just imagine what it would be like. And I will tell you, though, talk about corporate windfall, right? Because if they do, I mean, the guy who brought the Suit, I guess, was on NPR.
Right.
It's a wine distributor or something. And he was talking about how they could pay him back the tariffs because they know digitally. It's like all digital transfer. He's like, right now they could pull it up and just compensate me, just refund the tariff. But it's more complicated with the consumer, isn't it? Because you can't do that. So basically, all these corporations, if there is a repayment, they're going to get that $139 billion. But who paid that? We did.
We did, right?
So we're not going to see it back. But the corporations will get the profit back. My coffee went up like $2. The coffee I buy regularly at grocery outlet after the tariffs went up $2. I know tons of other things, but that's the one I noticed the most. It's like, oh.
Yeah.
Every time
what is your coffee?
It's called like Four Sisters. It's great. I buy it. I shop at this place. I mean, I shop a couple places, but it's in walking distance. It's called Grocery Outlet. It's the Marshalls of grocery stores. So
Very
like you
nice.
never know what you're gonna get. It's not like they got like they have these poppy sodas, which are these natural sodas. They're amazing. They're so cheap there. They're so cheap. They're like dirt cheap. I buy meat there, dirt cheap. I got 20 steaks for $60 because they were sell by that day.
Right.
And freeze them. So at the grocery outlet though, I see the tariffs. Thank you, Donald Trump, for making my coffee more expensive, which I won't see back.
You will not see back.
I will not see any of that back. But I do have the comfort knowing that my tax dollars are going to making RFK Jr. videos. Now that is actually the best part of this administration. The Kid Rock RFK workout video. I don't even know where to start with that. What to call it? What I don't know. Is it art? Is it homoerotic? Foreplay? Like, is it soft porn? I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. And who works out in jeans and no shirt?
He does. That's part of his trademark. He frequently is just.
I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna go to the gym this week on just jeans and no shirt. I'm gonna go to the stepper and see what people think. I'm like, hey, DHS secretary does this.
You should get
HHS.
Get a buddy off the street and tell him it's Kid Rock.
Yeah, exactly.
There are plenty of Kid Rock
Tell you what,
on the streets of Philadelphia.
RFK looks a lot fitter than Kid Rock. Much fitter.
Is that a surprise? Is it a surprise to you that Kid Rock is not fit?
Kid Rock doesn't look like obese or anything.
No, he's a skinny 57-year-old guy.
But RFK looks great. He looks great. I aspire to look like RFK.
Yeah.
I think I'm working on it. Did a lot of push-ups and pull-ups yesterday.
Very nice.
And the pull-ups are good. Push-ups, pull-ups, jumping rope. Circuit training, Bill. Bill, have resistance. Got to go to overload, Bill. Muscle failure is where. And Bill, into your 80s. This is good news for you. Into your 80s.
Thank you.
You can make significant gains.
Well, it's good that you did all that work yesterday while you were alienating half of America, according to one of your listeners.
Yeah.
Was that yesterday or the day before?
It was the day before. Like somebody said that this. I was talking with the great David Fitch, the great one.
Apparently someone I've offended a little.
You were really did you listen? Your name came up several times.
I listened to part of it. I did not hear my name.
It came up. Your name came up. You listened to the whole thing. Your name came up several times. This Bill Bohr. I mean, he's yes. Somebody said that so much could be learned from this conversation David Fitch and I had. Somebody posted on Facebook. So much could be learned if you two men weren't alienating half of the country. I mean, I'm taking. I know this person voted for Donald Trump, but doesn't the president spend all of his time alienating like 2/3 of the country?
Right. No, I would. Yeah.
His poll numbers are down to the base, and a lot of polls are in the 30s.
Yeah. Well, I guess they're allowed to do whatever they want. They're allowed to say whatever they want to, but and again, whoever they is, right? I mean, I think everybody might be a bit guilty of, wanting to dish it out but not take it, right? I think that's part of the problem that we have right now. But I wasn't offended by your conversation with Dr. Fitch. I was a little confused a couple times, but I was not offended.
There's some confusion. So people can listen to it. Go ahead, give and take. It's the most recent episode. It's interesting. It's something. He was a Wolf on Wall Street guy, though. He was saved from that. But then I asked him, like, he went from Wheaton College. I guess he was like Wheaton College made him a greedy, misogynistic, capitalist rat race guy, and then he got saved. I mean, he grew up in the church, though. His dad was a pastor, a CMA pastor.
Yeah, well, again, working through being a pastor's kid, and we know other people that went to Wheaton and became the conscience of evangelical America.
The great Dr. Matt Milner.
Matt Milner is trying. I think
one of the great evangelicals of our day.
It really is. Yeah, very much so.
The great Matt Milner. Yeah, I like Wheaton College. I think it's a great place, but it's I don't respect. I think they're the Eagles now or something. Their mascot. They used to be the Crusaders. That was my Wheaton. That's great.
Elon at one point were the Fighting Christians.
I love that.
Yeah, a matter of fact, I bought a T-shirt when I was down there when my stepson graduated from Elon, and at his graduation, I walked into the bookstore and they had the old Fighting Christians. So I have a Fighting Christian T-shirt.
That's awesome. Yeah. I totally support that. I'm in complete agreement. I love. See, that's the kind of stuff I like. I would send my kid to any college that had the name Crusader in it. I just think it's it's a little countercultural. Speaking of countercultural and turning back history, Bill.
Nice transition.
I'm a professional. I'm good at this. I'm quite good. Good.
There's the segue.
So you sent me this article, which we decided to talk about today. Rod Dreher thinks the Enlightenment was a mistake. Subtitle: The influential author derides secularism and the modern world. Conservatives, including the Vice President, are joining him on a march back to the Middle Ages. By Robert F. Worth. Photographs by Erica Nina Suarez. And he's newly single, apparently. So Erica Nina Suarez should suit his dating profile pictures because he looks quite handsome in these pictures. So ladies, they say, the single ladies, the single lady. If you are single and you are looking for a macho man to take you back to pre-Reformation Europe and his cultural values, sounds like he'd be a great date. I would send Rod Dreher an email.
I think if you want to have, I'm pretty sure. I don't know that the high Middle Ages would be congruent with what they're trying to do. I think there's too much integration with secular
where's our town? Where's our town, Indiana? What's our Carmel? Is it Carmel? What was the town?
Carmel, Indiana, right?
Carmel, Indiana, the dream place.
Mount Carmel.
Mount Carmel that runs like perfection. Why didn't Rod make his own Moscow, Idaho in Indiana? He shouldn't have gone to Hungary. He should have stayed here.
Yeah, he's a kind of loner guy. I mean, it's an interesting kind of part of this interview actually. It was I found him. I found some sympathy for him. He seemed to be a sad person in some very real ways, and life has not quite worked out the way he had hoped it would work. So, from the human perspective,
it doesn't for many of us.
Right, but you know what I'm saying. Here's this guy who is a hero among many, according to Halik, also a heretic. So Halik uses the word in reference to this work as well-intentioned heresy.
I don't know that it's heresy, but I do think it's. Well, it's kind of. Well, he used to write. I guess he still probably does for the American Spectator. I guess, and it is.
Yeah, but was it his Substack that's so popular? Everyone.
I guess this was his popularity that was pre-Substack.
Right, and that's what he does now. I think
he's a Substacker. I'm a Substacker. I don't really write enough. I'm going to rededicate myself to my Substack. Ben DeHart, our voice of the show, our announcer, has a great Substack. I would encourage all of our listeners, I don't know the name of it right offhand, but Google Ben DeHart Substack, priest, Episcopal, you'll find it. His stuff is fantastic. Some of the best devotional and spiritual reading out there. But I don't read Rod Dreher's. So they coined that term in 2017. I remember them calling him a crunchy conservative. you know, like he's a conservative, but he's wearing Birkenstocks and got chickens in his backyard and that kind of stuff. Like that probably getting oat milk in his lattes.
So we should put him in context for people who may not be aware of
Do you ever? Would you ever put oat milk in your latte?
My wife does.
Oat milk? Are you serious?
Mhm.
I mean, I like Laurel. I like your wife a lot, so I'll take that in stride. But I find that oat milk is so interesting. It's very interesting.
I don't really find it interesting.
It's so interesting. Oat milk. All right, oat milk.
Yeah, no. But anyway, let's put him in context. He is a conservative thought leader. As you mentioned earlier, wrote for the American Spectator for years. But probably the thing that why he got this article and what put him most on the map was a book he wrote called The Benedict Option, which he was kind of calling for those of you who don't know your Benedict either, he's Saint Benedict was a monk who
Not Benedict Arnold.
Not Benedict Arnold, but was a monk who was not actually that popular or well known in his own life, and actually frequently he was a reforming monastic, and one monastery they invited him to come do the reform, and the Holy Spirit told him that they had poisoned his food. So they were not that receptive to his reforms.
You know, that's one of the reasons Donald Trump eats at McDonald's all the time. Is they're like, you can't poison the food. He said that.
Right, it's already poisoned.
Yeah. That is their processed food. You know, I just watched a reel on Facebook, and this guy, I don't know who it was, but it's interesting because he was talking about the obesity rates in the turn of the 20th century, like in the early 20th century, which were like non-existent. Like most people, diabetes, it just didn't, like there weren't these conditions, like all this obesity, this heart, they just didn't, most cardiologists didn't treat heart attack people. I mean, they just weren't. And he's like, we ate all the milk, fat, butter, cheese. It's processed food, his argument was. It's the processed food.
Processed food and empty calories.
Empty calories and processed food. Corn syrup, processed food. It's terrible.
Yeah.
This is why I'm a huge supporter of the great RFK drinking whole milk. Just sucking down whole milk.
Not much makes me gag, but watching that video was.
He's like, it's this video. Yeah. It's so great. He's like, he's listening to house music, and it looks like he's taking hits of ecstasy, but he's drinking like whole milk, and he's like,
well, he knows what that feels like too. I'm sure.
Yeah. But he's done cocaine off of toilet seats.
Yeah. There. That's
he said that.
Talk about the glamorous life right there. Back to right there. Oh my gosh, leaving the Viva Loca right there. So Dreher talked about the Benedict option, that there's a need because of the collapse of Western civilization, and again, you could probably figure out the list of markers he has for that as a conservative. At one point was a pretty traditional conservative thinker. Would you not? Well, he's writing for the American Spectator, right?
Yeah, he was. I mean, I didn't really follow his work before the Benedict option.
Right.
I wrote a response to that, by the way, from Mockingbird called the Zacchaeus option, which some people like, and it was inspired by our reading of Halik.
Thomas Halik. Well, and he's basically saying that what we need to do is create small, communities that have withdrawn from society, these circles of spirituality, community, and light in the midst of what he would probably call the new Dark Ages, right? And the Benedict rule, which initially after Benedict's death, Pope Gregory the Great used to reform monastic communities in the Roman vicinity, and eventually also Charlemagne, and those reforms brought the rule to his domain. Alcuin and others did. So it was probably one of the most influential Christian movements in the history of Western Church.
And Dreher picks this up in light of sort of the 80s and 90s and 2000s and Ralph Reed and the Moral Majority and the Christian Coalition and all of this take back the country, right? Where conservatives thought, now we're gonna pack the courts, we're gonna turn America back around, and in a conservative and religious direction. We're gonna save the country. That the post Obama, and of course Obamacare, which was the apocalypse and everything. There's Dreher was one of these voices that maybe the culture's too far gone, and so this project.
He was also an early critic of Donald Trump too. He was not an early Donald Trump fan.
Yeah, well, a lot of them. Some of them in their cat. Marco Rubio, J.D. Vance,
J.D. Vance, right?
J.D. Vance. Let's go around the cabinet and find out who the early critics were. Right. Yeah, you find a lot of them sitting right on the cabinet.
Right.
And Mike Huckabee that said Israel can take it all. Did you see that video I sent you from Tucker Carlson?
Yeah.
Where Tucker Carlson, it's so strange, right? I agree with Tucker Carlson, but he's like basically, you're linking the modern state of Israel to biblical promises. He's basically the Euphrates. That's basically the whole Middle East. They should have it all. And Huckabee says it'd be fine if they took it all. Actually, Ambassador. Just take the whole thing. So much for Wyckoff and Jared, the Wonder Twins. I wouldn't send Wyckoff and Jared Kushner to break up a fight in the Real Housewives of Atlanta. I love it. These are the guys that we send everywhere.
And I would not have Mike Huckabee be the ambassador greeter at the Walmart, or that would actually be about the level where he belongs.
I liked his show though when he was on Fox.
Yeah,
when he played the guitar
with people.
He was great. He just kept doing that.
Yeah, he should have.
Take it all, Bill. Israel can take it all. Just take the whole damn thing. This is the ambassador.
Right.
Oh, folks, I just want to say, Tucker Carlson is occasionally the voice of reason in this country right now. Occasionally. And occasionally an anti-Semitic SOB. It's just strange that, so occasionally, though, when he's interviewing Ted Cruz, it's just, what's the population of Iran? What's the size? What's that matter? Well, if you want to invade a country, it helps to know what
you might want to know. Yeah, no. It's interesting, and I think for me, there's part of there's part of the intuition that he has that I think is right on. In terms of getting back to this idea of the Benedictine option, that I do think, with the collapse of a lot of institutional Christianity, with the religious illiteracy and commercialism of some of the most successful expressions of American Christianity, pockets of renewal, pockets of people devoting themselves to prayer and devotion. I mean, different versions of the Benedictine model was adapted by lots of different monastic movements, and often these movements would come in. They'd go to, the Cistercians would go into areas that they would drain swamps. They would take totally unfarmed land, turn it into really amazing economic centers that gave employment and well-being for lots of people around them, and became, in some cities grew up around those monastic communities. So I think there is this idea of people living in a kind of spiritual community together, making vows of accountability to each other. I mean, I think a lot of us have spent some of the probably more important time in our spiritual life was in small groups, sharing our life with folks. And so I think that instinct is part of the DNA of Christianity. I mean, I think that's part of why Jesus took 12 people, away, with him. It's why you read Paul. Paul's never alone, right? Paul, and when he is alone, it's not good. So he's doing ministry and community. So I think there's something about that. What Halik's critique is the authentic monastic communities, they didn't withdraw from the world because they hated the world. They withdrew from the world in part so that to be beacons of prayer
Yeah.
to save the world, right?
Yeah, in a time of cultural decay, to show, like, remind people what functional creation looked like, right? That you could live together simply and in efficient ways, and produce more than you needed, and have stores over for poor people, and through. So I just want to read just a little bit for the article for you.
Okay.
This is the author. I first began reading Dreher's Substack a couple of years ago, and felt as if I'd stepped into another world. Dreher spends much of his time with monks, back to the land theologians, that's me, and exorcists. Exorcists. He believes that a great spiritual battle is underway, as faith has receded and interest in the occult and pornography has grown. So has demonic activity, he continues. Priests must understand that they are dealing with disincarnate beings, fallen angels, who are vastly more intelligent than mortals. Dreher often speaks of AI as a portal to the demonic, and he feels similarly about the trans rights movement, which he sees as a symptom of a progressive dystopia in which there are no structures of truth outside the choosing self. To a secular ear, all of this supernatural talk can sound like useful idiocy that serves only the autocrats Dreher sometimes praises. People such as Viktor Orban, Hungary's authoritarian leader, who are always in need of a crisis, spiritual or otherwise, to justify their most extreme measures.
Right.
Dreher moved to Budapest in 2022 on his unfamiliar terms with Orban and other European leaders. Back to the land. I just changed my Twitter profile, Bill. I put concerned citizen, back to the land theologian. That's me.
Right.
Back to the land.
That's cool. You have quite a nice farm there in University City going on there.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Lots of weed farms in people's backyards. That's a lot of good bud.
A lot of stuff there. So yeah, and he no longer is a Roman Catholic. I guess the Roman Catholics were not conservative enough for him.
No.
So now he's an Eastern Orthodox. It's interesting the history of the Greek of the Greek Empire and the Greek Orthodox community, and it's amazing how many eunuchs though were involved in.
By the way, did you see the photo in this article of Vance, Orban, and then Dreher has his hand on Orban's shoulder. It looks like he's airbrushed in. He's like Zelig or something. Like
I don't know.
He's like got a photo with J.D. Vance and Orban. Just a couple buddies kicking back, drinking a few beers, and planning authoritarian overthrow of Western culture.
You know, it's hard to believe that such an anti-democratic guy grew up in Louisiana, under a repressive father. Yeah. Hey, well, I think it's interesting. I felt the writer's take on him. I mean, being a stranger in a strange land, I thought that was interesting, and in part him on pilgrimage with those young French Catholics, I thought was a kind of a beautiful. That was a beautiful thing. He's doing a pilgrim walk with young Roman Catholics in France, which apparently there's some renewal going on there, which we certainly know that they could use it just like we could use it here. And I thought that was a beautiful kind of scene that he was drawing life from these young adults who had faith, and apparently many of them knew who he was. So, there's something redemptive, and it is interesting, this Orthodox convert making Roman Catholic pilgrimages. But, I think it's...
Bill, let me just make you feel better about your tax dollars, okay? Let me make you feel better about those tax dollars. Dreher's ideas about the decline of Christianity in Europe, once seen as a little conspiratorial, are now becoming something like the official view of the Trump administration. When Vance attended the annual Munich Security Conference as a first-term senator in 2024, he got fed up with the European Union bureaucrats and took off early to reconnect with Dreher, who had come from Budapest over beer and sausages. A year later, Vance returned to Munich as vice president and vented his feelings about the arrogance of Europe's ruling elite and the dangers of mass immigration in a speech that could have been written by Dreher. accusing the European leaders seated before him of betraying their own civilization. Hey, I'm at the Munich Security
Well-
Conference. This is boring. I'm going to hang out with Rod Dreher.
But Rubio said something very similar last week as well. Matter of fact, on Ash Wednesday, it's obvious that whoever did Mark Rubio's cross, it was not me, because that was a well-structured ashes to ashes cross on Rubio's head. He was echoing the very same thing you just said there, and he went and telling Europe and the United States have to get back to their common cultural roots. So,
well, yeah. What are your thoughts, Bill? I mean, he's very into the supernatural. He likes he's very into exorcism.
well, what's interesting, Rust Outfit, has a whole chapter in his book about this disenchantment, and really that this idea that our society has not moved away from the supernatural. So it's interesting that these are two people who are not they're not from a snake handling church in Tennessee, but these are two intelligent, one an Orthodox convert, the other a devout Roman Catholic, who are saying similar things about the reality of spiritual forces in the world, and that they all, with Rust Out, that he says, and the reality of it is the secular non-Christian world or non-religious world talks about this all the time in all kinds of different ways, right? The interest in the occult and all that kind of thing is high. So, and supernatural things, the way people talk. And so, as much as maybe the radical, secular materialist wanted to say we're beyond that, that's just not true in terms of culturally where people are at. So his looking for the devil, and it's interesting how I remember dualistic. It's because there are wonderful Orthodox thinkers, and I've been influenced by them. I always reread one during Lent, and so there are some very devout and enlightened thinkers in the Orthodox community. One of the things that, of course, this article, they didn't really deal a lot with the Enlightenment, but you could argue that there was never a Renaissance in the Orthodox world, and
No, right.
and because of that, the kind of old-fashioned dualism is often very alive or well. I remember.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's no Thomas Aquinas, right? There's no
Thomas Aquinas,
kind of, and then there's no
Erasmus,
Renaissance. Then there's
right.
no Reformation and Counter-Reformation. All that stuff, it doesn't happen.
No.
So it's a very different theological flavor.
Now, some of the 20th century Orthodox writers who were popularized, there certainly was a wonderful and generous spirit there. I think some of the Orthodox martyrs, both, who was that? I can't think of his name. The Russian scientist who became a priest, but was martyred by the Bolsheviks. So there's obviously some brilliant Orthodox people who are fully in the modern world. But as a whole, as a tradition, it makes sense to me why I talked about this before, why there's an appeal among certain conservatives. You and I've talked some episode in the past, the idea that if you can no longer define the inerrant Bible, some American conservatives end up opting for either an inerrant church, but they convert to Roman Catholicism, or an inerrant tradition, which I think that some people think that's what they found in the Orthodox communion.
Well, Dreher, very interestingly, the article notes that he didn't always talk this way. In early 2017, he told an audience at the National Press Club that Trump's election suggested a weakness in the faith of the many Christians who had voted for him. Trump was another symptom of a consumerist, individualistic, post-Christian society. that worships the self. All right, this Dreher sounds reasonable. The writer Andrew Sullivan, who has been a friend and occasional sparring partner of Dreher's for decades, told me he believes Dreher hasn't really changed. The politics came to him more than the other way around. Sullivan said, suggesting that Dreher was radicalized by his opposition to the trans rights movement, Black Lives Matter, and other progressive causes.
Now, we just got a note from a listener too that said, "Is it Steve? I can't tell which Steve is it. Stephen Rowe? I can't see." But he says, "My understanding is that Rod left the Catholic Church for Orthodoxy because of the sexual abuse scandals." Okay,
Okay.
that's
Good for him.
that makes sense, right? Yeah. But obviously, his piety he has a strong connection to the Roman tradition as well, and certainly there are a lot of people disillusioned by that. So thank you for that, Stephen, for letting us know that. So I think the article is worth reading, and like I told you when I first read it, I came away feeling kind of a little more sympathy for the person. I've already said that part of what my study in church history was driven by was really to try to find these great Christian thinkers who also do teach me how to pray, and so in many ways I am very sympathetic to a return to a mystical and monastic Christianity, or at least the discipline and spirit of what's going on there. I mean, I pray with the Jesuit prayer site every day, and so I find that kind of structure. Also, just the hundreds, centuries, thousands, almost 2,000 years of knowledge and experience of the people who've gone before us, and people who devote their whole lives to service and prayer. I have felt that the lacks of my own spiritual disciplines, the lack of own depth in my prayer life, that these have been sources that have been well springs for me in my own spiritual journey. And I find at this, just even trying to do little pockets of it up here in Vermont. I had one of the leaders of my church said, "I love that little prayer we do every Lent." She goes, "I actually was looking forward to you adding that." And it's the little St. Ignatius prayer of surrender that's prayed during
Bill,
Lent.
enough about you and your prayer life. Let's go back to Dreher. In February 2025, he wrote, "The system is collapsing. Good. It's about time." He hopes for a similarly bold assault on the liberal governments of Western Europe. He would like to see its white, native-born population rise up and fight against the dilution of its Christian heritage. In July, he wrote a melancholy post asking why the British are acquiescing in their own demise as a people. And then there's Dreher's decision to move to Budapest. I asked him about the price of Orban's rule, the shameless undermining of democratic institutions, the rampant corruption, the weak economy, the kowtowing to Vladimir Putin. Dreher told me he doesn't support everything Orban has done, but was full of praise for the Hungarian leader, whom he credits with having rescued his country's social and cultural integrity by limiting immigration. The man is a real visionary, Dreher told me. So is Mussolini. The two have met only 3 or 4 times, he said, but Dreher has been affiliated since 2021 with the Danube Institute, a state-backed think tank that has been a vehicle for disseminating Orban's political ideas. I don't agree with everything he's doing.
So maybe the point I was trying to make is that don't do the Dreher option. You can take your Benedict straight up, not through that.
Find a
person.
nice Ignatian prayer. Just don't try to undermine Western democracy. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting because the article sort of, the title suggests that Dreher thinks that the Enlightenment was a mistake, that largely the story of Western decline is a story of sort of godless Enlightenment taking over Europe, and then by default the rest of Western culture, and making people trans and liberal and oat milk drinking and all this stuff, and then and that's leading to cats and dogs living together and all whatever. So that's his kind of cultural story, right? So that we would have been better off, I suppose. I mean, that's interesting. How do you get to what, like, post, like industrial kind of Western society, late stage capitalist society? How do you get to that without the Enlightenment? Like, what it looked like The
Right,
Handmaid's
exactly.
Tale?
It's interesting, his conversion to Orthodox. He reminds me of, the iconoclastic movement, saying, they're reading the signs of the time. Everything's going wrong. It must be because of the icons. And so, they go back. I mean, it creates for a couple hundred years, you go back and forth. And then when things start going wrong, when the iconoclasts are in charge, then they say that it must be because we got rid of the icons. Well, I do think you should read the signs of the time, but that doesn't mean you get it right. You and I've talked before about so much of what's good about the Enlightenment is exactly the success of Western Christianity influencing
Absolutely.
the world.
It's
So
Karl Barth says something about the modern missionary movement. He says at the same time the world was turning away from the church was turning to the world in a way. And yeah, I mean, I think I think you can read the Enlightenment a lot more dialectically and in a more nuanced way, of course, than Dreher. And you think about it. I think Halik does this quite well, actually.
Right,
He has a much more critically sympathetic approach to how the Enlightenment tradition can mean the afternoon of Christianity. It can mean a maturing, a sort of, learn it, looking back and integrating some of the pains and wounds. I mean, this is the Jungian metaphor for the afternoon of life, right? It can be this incredibly integrative healing journey, and I think that would be another way to look at the Enlightenment. I was also thinking too about for Kant, autonomy is the goal, literally self-legislation, right? So that you're not listening to the priest or the authority figure, but and on some level, right, there is eschatological talk of this in Scripture, right? Jeremiah says, "I'll give you a new covenant where the laws are written on your heart," right? Where there's spontaneous freedom.
Isn't that what the Grand Inquisitor accused Jesus of trying to do?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The Grand Inquisitor would be. I'll tell you what he would think right now. He's like, "What I could have done with ICE." Wow, if I had these guys.
The Grand Inquisitor would be quite happy in
the Inquisition.
In Hungary as well.
What a show.
Yeah, right.
Remember that in Mel Brooks' History of the World?
Yeah.
The Inquisition. Right. What a show. So there you go. Well, I think it's safe to say we are not on Team Dreher.
No, but
are we? No, I shouldn't speak for you.
No,
I shouldn't speak for us collectively.
I think what I try to be, I actually try.
Our pronouns are not they, we.
No, mine's Shaft. John Shaft. Anyway, no, but I think what I want to do is be sympathetic to the impulse, which I think there's something to that, right? Yeah, and I guess I am with Halik on his assessment of the book and the movement. So.
I mean, there's always a yes and a no, right? I mean, this is probably if you have the Christ against culture, if that's just all no, and the Christ of culture is all yes, there's probably the answer is probably in some dialectical creative tension where you're saying we're Yoder said something once about how countercultural are you or something. He said that depends on the other guy. He depends on the culture. It depends on the context of it, right? I mean, these things can't be fixed, but there are always going to be some yes and some no. It's a safe assumption. There'll always be redemptive things in the culture,
right,
that are going ahead of the church and manifestations of God's reign already in the culture. And there are things in the world and the church that are signs of disobedience, and that's just the deal. But
it is the struggle, right?
The struggle is real.
All right.
Increase the peace.
All right. Thank you, everyone. And,
thank you, everybody.
Take care.
The beat goes on.